Chris Neal, Derek Stepan, out in front of chance. They score! Chris Kreider, his first NHL goal. The Rangers by 2.
Sloppy defensive work by the Senators. Kreider comes into the zone.
Stays strong, shot by him, and a lead pass ahead. A drive by Kreider. Over near Gibbons, diving play though to the back by Kreider, and a rebound. He scores! Kreider!
With the Rangers too, and settling things down after the goal. Up the middle, here's Kreider again, scores!
It's 35 of the power play. Step onto the back. Richards there, side of the net, gave it over. For a pass, score! Kreider, a power play goal, and the game is tied.
Stepan, Derek Stepan, cuts over, one push gone, he scores! Chris Kreider has tied it.
Goes away, Chris Kreider, he's in there, scores! What an effort, what a goal, what a start! Here's Broussard off the face-off win, bouncing puck, oh, he can't find it, they score again, and it's Kreider. Now, did this count? Do they have a buzzer beater? There's no time left on the clock.
Center ice, now a chance, Kreider busting in, he scores! Chris Kreider brings the Rangers within 1. It's a bandage shot, off the side of the net, and they score! He gets it back, Panarin dishes, Fox to Trocheck, from the high slot, Panarin scores! The Rangers have tied the game at 3 apiece! A lot on it, it was a bullet, the Rangers, the Burnage up the score! Can you believe it? Chris Kreider with the natural hat trick, the go-ahead goal!
I just realized I accidentally put on the one that might have to get muted later. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Big Apple Hockey, because now it's official. Chris Kreider is no longer a member of the New York Rangers and has moved on. I, of course, am your host, Mark Williams. I am
your sad host.
A what?
I am your sad host. It's more like it.
Well, I had said this day was coming a long time ago. But I'm joined by the host of Final Buzzer, Mr. John Volkowski.
Well, it's here, and we were talking about it for a while, and now the day has come. Dave, someone please give Mark a hug. Jason, we'll talk about that in just a little bit.
We're about to break it down.
So we'll break that down, but. We have our third member of the staff here, our Triforce, Mr. Anthony Larocco.
I have, I was going to say I have 2 questions, but now it's 3. One, why am I always the third force? Like the third part, I'm the afterthought or the chopped liver.
You are not the chopped liver. There's 3 parts.
You are not the chopped liver. See, it's a Triforce.
Secondly,
yeah.
Why is Atlanta getting a team back for the 3rd time? And lastly, the most important question, how many times did Mark Williams cry while making that Kreider tribute video? Those are 3 questions.
I think the simple answer is 0, only because, again, this is a day I knew was coming, Anthony. This is a day that goes all the way back to October. But also it's a day I called last summer. I said, look, they're going to have to move on from Chris Kreider sooner or later. And you can't have a 34-year-old big body who relies on speed and hope that it's gonna work out like in 2 years. No, you got to move him now. Strike while the iron's hot, while he's still in demand, while he still has the seventh most power play goals over the last 5 years. 5 years, I believe it is, and that you can actually get something for him. And that's what they had to do. And Anthony, if I recall correctly, the third member of the Triforce is always the Triforce of wisdom. So that's why you're always the one that we always.
Yeah, Anthony, since you don't know Zelda lore very well, the Triforce can't operate without all 3 pieces being together and in balance. So
yes. And there you go.
It's not a ranking thing, my friend.
I was just messing around.
To elaborate on this comment, It's definitely not weathered. It's definitely going to be My Own Prison. He's definitely going to be blasting like Torn or My Own Prison right now. Probably Torn.
Yeah.
It's Chris Drury. So
yeah, it's gonna be a day that Mika Zibanejad's gonna rue. So go on and rue it. But the New York Rangers send Chris Kreider and a 4th-round pick to Anaheim to the Anaheim Ducks. They're getting back a 3rd-round pick and prospect Carey Terrance. We're going to get into who he is in a second. Now, we talked about this yesterday on yesterday's show, so go ahead and check that out. Kreider ranks 8th in Rangers games played, 3rd in goals scored, tied for 1st in power play goals, 2nd in game-winning goals, most playoff goals, most playoff game-winning goals. Now, again, we talked about Kreider's legacy yesterday, but what does this trade mean? How does this shake down? And it is freeing up $6.5 million worth of cap space. But where is this trade going? And what do you think about the pieces that are coming back, Phil?
Terrance is a nice piece to add. He was a former 2nd-round pick in 2023. There's potential there. From what I've seen, the little I know about him, and I'm not going to say I know a ton about him, he reminds me a little bit of somebody like Matt Cullen. He can play center and wing. He's probably better suited on the wing. He's got a lot of speed. He's got a motor. I think there's some offensive potential there. I think he maxes out as probably a middle 6 forward. If he plays center, I don't know how well he's going to be able to play center at the next level, but I can see him being a middle 6 winger and an effective one. Something, I look at Brett Berard as someone that plays a similar type of game to him. I think Berard's a little more of a pest in the fact that he plays, I think, a little more physical, and his motor is probably a little better. But I do think that this is an effective NHL player one day that can come in and be a contributor for you. You get to move up 15 spots in the draft, which is good. It's not bad at all. They could use more 2nd and 3rd round picks because they don't have a lot of those. They gained obviously the $6.5 million in cap space, and I see comments like the one I believe from Josh before. Yeah, waiting to see how Drury uses his cap space before I celebrate. Understandable. Chris Drury made some questionable decisions with some of his assets, so I get it. Lonnie pointing out that we moved from 25th in cap space to 20th. I mean, numbers really don't. The ranking really doesn't concern me. It's the actual amount of cap space that concerns me and what they're going to do with it. So, I mean, do they go after Jason Robertson now? Do they move Mika Zibanejad? Do they move Keandre Miller? Do they try to move Artemi Panarin? I mean, I don't know if that would be the best idea right now. But this had to happen. Once the memo was leaked, he was checked out. That was it. We all said it. I don't think we're regretting this for years to come, or it has anything to do with getting Connor McDavid. I think you're overreacting quite a bit there. New York Rangers Facebook compared this to Mets trading Seaver.
Oh,
yeah, even as a Yankee fan, I'm offended by that as a Yankee fan because Tom Seaver is pitching royalty. How do you even do that?
Let me break this down in a second on those thoughts, but let me get Anthony's thoughts. Anthony, is this a good return for the guy that everybody said was the number 2 trade piece of the offseason?
Well, first, I agree with everything Phil said about Terrance, but let's just be real here. The purpose of this trade was to clear the cap space. That's the main part of this trade. So, could he end up as a middle 6 winger? Yes, absolutely. That's good. But the most important of this piece was they moved Kreider to create more cap space to give Drury a little bit more wiggle room, and that was the goal. And obviously also to kind of, change up the culture a little bit and retool. So that was the primary purpose of this trade. So I think everybody knew that Kreider wasn't going to return a premium asset based on his age, the season he had. The time to do that, which I think we all agreed at one point, was before he was going to reach unrestricted free agency when they re-signed him to that deal. That was the time where if you would have moved him, you would have gotten a Brock Nelson type return, like a legit top prospect. Yeah. But that's hindsight 2020. They didn't do it, and now here we are today. So good on Drury for certainly not retaining any salary and getting a decent prospect in return. That's good for sure. But again, the premise was to shed salary, to shed Kreider's cap hit. The comment that Phil highlighted before was very true about what he does with the cap space. I know Evan's been vocal on that. He's like, I'll wait to kind of get excited to see what he does. I know they've been linked to Gavrikov, which he's a proponent of. That's just going to chew up all the cap space you just created. That would be a face palm what Phil's doing right now. If he does do that,
whoever signs him to 8x8 is going to regret.
Yeah, absolutely. But I alluded to it before in my tweet. Now they have $14.9 million of cap space. After they re-sign Cooley and Rempe, they'll roughly have, let's say 8.8, 8.9 to work with, and that's decent because that doesn't include Keandre Miller, so he's probably going to get traded. So that $8 million you really have at your disposal to do what you see fit. So but I think if he really wants to make a big move, he's gonna have to move like a guy like Zibanejad to really get something significant done.
I agree.
Because you got to remember, even if you trade Keandre Miller, you got to think
you got to replace that.
Yeah. Well, that not only that, but a pretty decent player is going to come back in return and chew up the majority of that 8.8 that's left. So
unless you get a guy that's younger or similar age that has the upside and is waiting to take that next step.
Yeah, if it's like a prospect that doesn't really have a huge contract, that could be a possibility too.
Not a prospect, but I'm talking like an NHL level, like young talent.
Oh, okay.
That's close to breaking out that needs that opportunity.
Yeah. So it could go a couple different avenues right now. This could be great because he can make subsequent moves that sets him up to do something really good, or they could do something dumb like signing Gavrikov or just throwing the savings away. So we'll see what transpires, but I think it all circles back to that this move had to happen. I know he was beloved by a lot of fans, including the guy in the top left there. But it needed to be done. So should be an exciting offseason, as it's starting to kick off. This trade essentially does kick it off.
Yes, actually it does kick off the offseason, and I still am not really a proponent of transactions happening during the Stanley Cup Finals, especially a day of a game. So there should have been some sort of media silence, even though you can't even silence the media on this because they would still tweet it out because they're all a bunch of parasites. However, getting back to some of the reactions that we just had, guys, I'm one of the biggest Chris Kreider fans you could find. I mean, guy's been a great guy, good, really good player, untapped potential. I said before, you're going to look back at him and he's going to be probably more maddening than Alexei Kovalev as far as the unlocked potential. So let's get that out of the way first. There is a comparison for this trade, and it's already with the New York Rangers. Let's stick with the one that's the real comparison, the Adam Graves trade. He was traded to San Jose around the same age, had some back issues. They got back Michael Samuelsson, I think another prospect, and a draft pick. That was it. That was all the return. And Michael Samuelsson, should the Rangers have held on to him, would have gone on to have a very good NHL career. People forget about that. If you want to say the Tom Seaver trade, first off, that's not true because you're mispronouncing Sergei Zubov. Sergei Zubov is the Tom Seaver trade for the New York Rangers. Tom Seaver is one of the 10 best I almost went to the wrong. I did go to the wrong sport. It's one of the 10 best pitchers of all time. Sergei Zubov, you can make an argument at least top 30 defenseman since he is in the Hall of Fame. But I digress a little bit. So, but the truth out of this is Kreider's a diminishing asset. 34 years old, big body. He's going to slow down. This was the time they had to deal him. And also, how can you justify keeping him when you're going to diminish his ice time? And Alexei Lafreniere, should he still be on the team, more on that in a minute, is going to be getting paid more money than him. And you're going to have to invest in this is the stupid part of all this. The Rangers never invested in their youth. And because they never invested in their youth, that's why we're in the position that we're in today. Now, Kreider on this last deal, at least he had a couple really good seasons. I'll give him that. But,
Mark,
yes.
I don't want to cut you off, but I just figure it's noteworthy to say. I can't read the article because it's on a paywall, Larry Brooks, but Bald Panarin kind of retweeted it, so I don't know exact words, but it says Larry Brooks' expectation is that Keandre Miller is traded soon. Also, no guarantee that Lafreniere is here for camp. But I can't.
I'm not surprised by any of this.
I can't read the article though.
I'm not. Yeah,
No,
I'm not signing up for that.
So go on.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna kind of finish up what you were saying. I don't agree with the Seaver trade. I mean, Seaver was traded towards the back end of his career.
He was in the middle of his career.
I would say maybe just after, maybe at the beginning of the back nine of his career.
Yeah, but he still won a Cy Young with the Reds, if I recall correctly.
So, yeah, but I mean, how old was he when he won that Cy Young?
I'll look that up real quick.
Yeah, like I'm pretty sure he was well into his 30s when he won that Cy Young. But I understand the sentiment where you're coming from. And I keep seeing stuff in the chat about, being treated like crap by his employees. No, like, you got to remember, this guy is a guy whose career could be summed up by being consistently inconsistent. Like, this was a guy that was given chance after chance after chance to be a great player. And because he didn't want to show up every night and he would disappear for weeks on end, I mean, he kind of squandered a lot of the talent that he had. Thank you, John. We appreciate that. Highlight this one right here. But yeah, John's right. It's time. It is.
So just to give you that answer, he won the Cy Young a year before the Mets moved on from him. So my mistake.
Okay, so he won Cy Young with the Mets. Yeah.
Yeah, 3 of them.
But you saying he's treated like crap? No, like, this guy wasn't treated like crap for his entire career. He stopped showing up. And the general manager tried to get him to do his job and show up and play. And that's where I think the narrative is being tinkered with. There's some revisionist history here that's going on with some of the fans. You know what? I get it. Chris Drury seems callous, and he has to get done what needs to get done. Yeah, Richie, thank you. Long time coming. It had to happen. But I will say that, I'm going to highlight this real quick. Vince Mercogliano's article saying they called on Robertson, which we knew, but also Marty Natchez. That's an interesting name. I don't think I. Yeah,
no.
The guy has the same build as Tom Wilson, but couldn't get hit or hit someone else. This thing for me is the biggest thing right here. And you could say all you want about Chris Drury. I have my concerns about Chris Drury, whether or not he's the guy to really get the job done here. But I mean, he was partially hurt, but that doesn't mean that you just stop showing up. This is
Caroline, back problems don't get better.
Yeah, back problems don't get better. But can we stop?
Oh, I didn't touch anything.
I didn't mean to do that.
Sorry. But yeah, this comment here is it hasn't worked. The problem, if you want to blame Drury for anything, it's that after 2023, this whole thing should have been broken up.
Yeah. This
whole thing should have been broken up after that season. And I get that Trouba's contract didn't come off didn't change from the no move until the no trade until after 23-24. But they should have started making moves and putting it out there that they wanted to break this team up after 2023, after that embarrassing Devils series. They quit on Gallant. Why is it that it's okay for Kreider to quit, but it was not? There's nothing wrong, or it's not okay for them to go after Kreider, to go after Mika, to go after these guys, but it was okay for them to quit on Gillette. They quit on 3 different coaches now. And yes, Quinn, I think, is not cut out to be a coach. We'll see what happens with him and his assistant. But they quit on 3 different coaches in 5 years, and the blame is going to go solely on the front office? No, it hasn't worked. These guys haven't been able to get the job done. They were mentally soft. They couldn't get it done. Time to start over.
And again, look, I think Drury was limited by some of the contract provisions, such as the no trade clauses, everything that you can name that were saddled on him by Jeff Gorton. Like, everybody wants to keep on forgetting. Jeff Gorton deserves plenty of blame in this.
Oh, absolutely.
And that now Drury actually does have a chance to shape the team how he wants. Now, again, I'll also give Drury some credit. I mean, this is something that has to happen. And it's had to happen for a while.
Thank you, Johnny Red. Sorry, Mark.
No, it's perfectly fine on this one. And Anthony, I'm going to go right back to you in a second. But there's a lot of it, because look at what happens when you keep the same band together and they just don't do it anymore. Look at San Jose. San Jose, they had to tear the entire thing down because they thought Erik Karlsson was the missing piece. Nice. It got you to a conference finals. What happened after that?
I think Chris T is right. I think that's what they're going to do. I think they've seen enough from him, and I think that's why they're looking to move on. I wouldn't be shocked if he goes the other way in a Jason Robertson trade. I really wouldn't.
Do not get me wrong with this thing. I wish all the best for Lafreniere if they decide to move on from him. But part of this falls on the New York Rangers. They drafted him number 1. They didn't have a plan to fit him in. And then they turned around and went, all right, well, you got to earn your ice time. Earn your ice time? I'm a number 1 overall pick.
No, you put players in what's what I was saying yesterday. You put players in optimal situations to develop and become the players that you want them to become. And this team is the worst team in the NHL at doing so.
Yeah. And Anthony, I know you're shaking your head. I know you've been very much a critical Lafreniere for years. But this is also what happens when you don't invest in your young players.
Not help Dallas getting back a young asset in return that could probably step into their top 6 and be productive?
He's saying because it's been said that one of the reasons why Dallas wants to move him is to create cap space. So Lafreniere has a similar cap hit to Robertson, so it doesn't save them any cap if they did that deal.
Well, then what they would probably have to do is open up that deal and send back one of Lyubushkin or Dumba in that deal, and then the Rangers could probably.
Yeah, they would have to. Yeah.
Yeah, it wouldn't be a 1-for-1 trade. If you think this is a 1-for-1 trade, I don't think that. I think you're going to be in shock.
But as we've talked about this before on the Rangers wrap-up show, this team is far and away. They're far from one player away.
Thank you, Johnny Red. We appreciate that, buddy.
Thank you very much, Johnny Red. But they're far from one player away. They need to completely sit back. They should have done it a while ago. Figure out what their identity truly is. And instead, they just kind of went, oh, we'll run it back again. There's a team that's not going to perform when the game gets physical in the playoffs. They're a better version of the Carolina Hurricanes, and that's mostly due to Igor Shesterkin. Their guys that said something complimentary about him. But, I mean, Anthony, so you talked about Miller before, and we mentioned Lafreniere. Who else could be on the chopping block, you think? Who's the next piece?
I mean, who I think who will be? I mean,
I think we're looking at the guy right there.
Yes. I would say it's 100% Keandre Miller is the next guy to go. But we all talked about it. Zibanejad should go. But the no movement clause does get in the way. I mean,
I don't know. I'm going to go back to that, and I'm going to say it again. I think he will be more amenable.
Absolutely will be. Whether he actually will do it still is remains to be seen. But I think it does help. I just don't know. I mean, there's that rumor. Whoever said he just bought a house in Connecticut.
That happened back in like May. There was something about that, but you can always sell property. It doesn't.
Oh, of course you can. Yeah, it's just a matter of how entrenched he is. I mean, if he doesn't want to go, he's not going to go. But I think they should try to make him wave and go. I think that would be huge. But honestly, for me, I think you move Trouba, you move Kreider now. You're talking about moving Miller. You want to move Zibanejad. Why not go all the way and try to move Panarin? I mean, I think that's the guy. I think it's the guy that. Don't get me wrong. He's the most talented player. He could score 100 points, but I think his play is sometimes infectious. I mean, look at Lafreniere. I mean, Lafreniere kind of is Panarin-esque with his similarities with playing defense and hustling and back checking. You can't tell me that he didn't rub off on him maybe a little bit. Like, I think moving a guy like Panarin, it might hurt for sure in the standings and points wise, but that's a lot of dollars, opens you up avenues to get other really good players. And also too, let's face it, Panarin is phenomenal in the regular season, but Mark, what happens in the playoffs when things get really physical? He takes his ball and he goes home because he doesn't like to play like that.
Well, Panarin, yeah.
So it's I don't know. I Panarin, he's extremely talented, but and we've had this discussion about other players like Trevor Zegras is really talented. Is he a player you win with?
No.
Panarin, phenomenally talented, great production, but do you win a Stanley Cup with him? I mean, I don't know. I think. We don't know how he is behind closed door in the room, and I know everybody has different personality, but he just seems so like happy-go-lucky to me. With his personality, like is he a guy that really just gets frustrated and demands effort from people and like really wants to win and is so hungry for that to take the next step, like Connor McDavid in that Amazon series, how there's the famous clip of him saying, "Come on, right effing now," and like how fired up he was and how much he wanted it.
I don't see that from Panarin.
Exactly.
And by the way, let me also extend that for a second and then go right back to you, Anthony. Of McDavid says that if you want to say he sounds like a crybaby little whiner, then McDavid goes and walks the walk.
Yeah, well, exactly it. I just feel with Panarin, if in the same case as Zibanejad, if you could get him to waive his no movement clause, I mean, you try exploring it, but I don't think it's going to happen. He's got 1 year left. I think it's just likely he plays it out, but I don't think it would be a bad idea if they tried to move him.
Yeah, the only thing is that this is a great point here, and to kind of expand on what Richie is saying here, you can't move your best player and then not bring in players to replace that production, because then you're going to have to give Pittsburgh your pick in this year's draft. If that's what you're going to do, because you're going to be bad in 2026. You might even be a lottery team in 2026. And if that's what they want to do, okay, I'm fine with that. But I have trouble seeing that after they traded for a 32-year-old JT Miller. And signed Igor Shesterkin to that insane contract. So I don't know how you do that, and then you advocate punting a year, because you were already resigned to punting like 2 to 3 years to try to get back to being like a cup threat, and now you're going to punt another year to go even further back. I don't know. I personally, I don't see it. I think Soucy will be gone. There's word that they are looking to move him. I've seen his name come up. So there is, and I think he can be moved, and I think he can be moved without retention. All you have to do is literally just take a 7th round pick and call it a day. I think some team will take him with no retention, and you get a 7th round pick or a prospect that has virtually no shot at making the NHL, and that's it.
And I bring this up all the time, Phil, about how the Jonathan Huberdeau trade is the one that really should signify what it takes for a team to go, all right, we're going to shove all in. I've talked about this ad nauseum, guys. I'm sorry you're going to hear it again. The Florida Panthers traded the best player they ever drafted at that point, a 100-point scorer who arguably could have been an MVP that season, And they dealt him like that. And Mackenzie Weegar, who was a pretty good player too. And they changed around their identity. This is what the New York Rangers have to look in the mirror and do. They started doing that a little bit with JT Miller. I'm not a big fan of the acquisition, but I've seen him produce. I also don't think he's captain material, guys. That's a different story in general. But, I mean, this is something they need to change around a lot of things. The other part of this is when people are hesitating, Mark, you can't trade Artemi Panarin. What are you doing? He had 120 points last year, 2 years ago, the season before, whatever you want to say now. Well, he had 8 points this year. And the other part of that is he's going to be 34 years old when the season starts. Right now, Anthony, you're going to be more truthful. I mean, so I'm going to go rapid fire with you. Are the Rangers better than the Hurricanes right now?
I mean, as of right now, I would say no.
Okay. Are they better than the Devils? Phil,
I mean, you gotta go by who made the playoffs and who didn't. So, I mean, no.
Okay, great. Are the Rangers better than the Columbus Blue Jackets?
That's debatable.
That's debatable.
That's debatable.
If you're in a debate, why are you hanging on to a guy who's making $11.5 million? And right now, the GM doesn't want him here. He doesn't want him here since 2022. And that no-show he pulled in the playoffs that year, even with an overtime game winner. I'm not convinced he wants to be here anymore.
And I see Marner's name being thrown around in the chat. I'm going to tell you guys right now, Mitch Marner will not be coming here. They are not going to go. If you want to believe that Mitch Marner is a playoff no-show, which I don't think he's a complete no-show. I think he still plays good defense. He just doesn't score the big goals when you need him to at all. Puts up some points. But if you think that Artemi Panarin is bad enough to watch in the playoffs, they're not going to go give $14 million to Mitch Marner to do the same thing in a different location at $3 million more, $2.5 million more than what Artemi Panarin was making, despite the age difference. It's not
unless you can find some way to take the pressure off of him, Phil. Because after all, there was a New York Ranger that wasn't very good in the playoffs. I think his name was Marian Gaborik. We all talked about this. Marian Gaborik's no good in the playoffs. No.
And then he leads the 2014 playoff goals. I get it. Yeah, you put him with a guy like Anze Kopitar, things change up. Yes, but again, you're bringing in Mitch Marner to be one of the guys. So it's not. That's a different scenario when Marian Gaborik was in the back nine of his career, and he was brought in to be a complementary piece. We're talking apples to oranges.
That is right. That's a little bit apples to oranges. You're right about that.
Yeah. No, I don't think they're getting Ben at Johnny Red. I really don't. No, Rick Nash was not bad in the playoffs. Again, guy that didn't put up the goals, was kind of snake bitten in 2014. I mean, if you even want to talk about that in the finals where he got gloved by Quick, where you thought he had the open net.
Actually, I think that was deflected by
yeah, it was deflected. That's right. Deflected, yeah. Sorry. But it's Rick Nash was not bad in the playoffs. Rick Nash created a lot of offense for his line, a lot of chances for his line, and was very good defensively. Just the points and the goals just weren't there. Did everything else he needed.
But again, we're looking at pieces that like they're 28 years old. They're not 28 years old anymore. Artemi Panarin is not the guy that he used to be. And you want to talk about assets, Artemi Panarin can get you back assets. And I'm sorry, I'm not convinced he wants to be here. He looks checked out, too.
I don't think he looks checked out. I think he looked frustrated just because there was nothing going on.
Take the Calgary game.
He wants to leave New York.
Take the Calgary game, Phil. He basically showed up, scored the first goal, and then took the rest of the night off.
I get it. I'm not disagreeing that there are games where he'll pop in a goal and the rest of the game he's like invisible, and especially when it becomes a tougher, more tightly checked game where he just doesn't, give you anything. But the problem is that with someone like Artemi Panarin, he wanted to be here because of the city, the lifestyle. His wife wanted to be here. He has a kid here now. I mean, I don't know if you, I don't know if he wants to waive. I really don't. I think you're going to have a problem with him wanting to waive. I mean, the only thing that I could see is those allegations coming back up that were there around like the end of the season. Maybe that becomes an issue where maybe he takes a look at that. You know what? He sees that things are going in a different direction, and they tell him, hey, you know what? We're not going to re-sign you afterwards. Can we deal you and get something for you now? And we'll get you to somewhere where you want to be, like a team that you would want to go to. Maybe
again, and I'm going to go back to Anthony 1 second, but you have Keandre Miller, who I know there are definitely 31 GMs licking their chops going, give me this guy. I'll show you how to make him into a player because he's big. They're hoping they can make him physical. Maybe they can, in the right system, get him to be a better player. But Ranger fans, we're all sitting there going, no, he's got to go. We've all seen too much. And then there's of course the Zibanejad. And I keep saying this all the time, like we said it in yesterday's show. Does Zibanejad want to be a wing? Because centers
I don't know. He looked comfortable next to JT Miller, his old teammate, this year. So,
yeah, I don't know, guys. It's one of those things. Go ahead.
Yeah, he's going to be the harder one to move, if anything. I think they have a better chance of moving Panarin than they do of moving Zibanejad, and it's not just because of the term left on the deal. I think that Zibanejad is younger. I think I mean, even with Kreider being dealt, he might be more open, but Panarin may be open to a new change of scenery just because he knows that his deal's up, and I don't think the Rangers are going to re-sign him at a reduced amount. I know people have brought that up. Stevens brought that up and thinks it's a possibility. But I think they're going to move on from him. I think they're going to go in a different direction. You've obviously seen what type of players Chris Drury wants to bring in here and have this team built around. The next move has to be getting Will Cooley signed, like ASAP. He cannot hit the offer sheet period. He cannot.
Anthony, let's stick with Panarin for a second, and then we'll go right back to Will Cooley. You're Artemi Panarin. I approach you. We're not going to resign you. Would you like us to facilitate a trade to you somewhere? What would be your trade list in his mindset? Obviously, the Florida Panthers.
It's tough. If you look at the teams that he would have, at the end of the day, if he had to, that he would have played for before he signed with the Rangers, the Panthers, he probably would have signed with the Islanders because it's still New York, but those two teams aren't going to trade for Panarin. The Rangers aren't going to do that deal with either of those teams, especially the Islanders. And as far as Florida goes, they have their own. They have Aaron Ekblad, who's a free agent. They have Sam Bennett, that's a free agent. Marchand, so they have a lot of stuff that they're going to try to do. I don't think they'd have the cap space to take on that contract. So, other than that, LA. You did hear a little bit about LA before he was a free agent. It's another popular destination because of the weather and the beaches, etc. There's also rumor he met with Colorado in free agency or spoke with them, but I don't. Again, cap space. So to answer your question, Mark, I think the places that he would wave to aren't realistic destinations. Like I don't. So it's really, really hard to say, but that's the problem with dealing him. So you might have to just ride it out with him for the last year, and he maybe walks in the offseason. It's just such a hard trade to make right now, especially when he holds all the cards.
Well, going back to Will Cooley, what do you think a contract for him would be reasonable?
I think I think you're going to see a comparable to Tyson Forrester that just signed in Philly. I think he'll get low end 3.5, high end 4.25, maybe on the higher end on a short term deal. Obviously, if you want 8 years, that changes things, and you're going to pay more. But I think on a bridge deal, you're talking anywhere between $3.5 to $4 million or so. I would say that's likely what you're looking at for Cooley.
Do you think 5 for 5 would actually get it done?
Five times 5?
Yeah. Instead of 3.75, which is what Tyson Forrester has for this year next.
I mean, I don't know. I think, and I'm just totally guessing. I think if he was gonna go longer term, I think he would just go all the way to 8 and try to get even more.
You're cutting out, Ant.
He said he would try to go to like 8 years and get more money out of that.
So yeah, like something like maybe 48 over 8. So it's like $6 million per year or something like that. I mean, I don't know if he's really worth that at this point. I mean, I get it. You're paying based on potential, but I wouldn't want to move him. I really wouldn't. I don't like. And I don't think Drury would either. Yeah, I think you signed Cooley to a bridge deal because I mean, yeah, there's a chance that if you give him power play time, he can maybe pot over 30. But I would bridge him now and then because the cap's going to go up exponentially over the next few years. So you'll have the space to be able to do that and give him. I mean, I would love to give him like a 3-year deal and then go from there. You give him something similar to what Forster got. You can go back in 3 years, cap goes up, and bang, you've got a new player. But I don't think 5 by 5 does it for him. I don't. I'm sorry. I don't think.
I just drew out the 5 by 5.
Yeah, I don't think it does anything for him. I don't. I think because I think he'll bet on himself to try to get more. And yeah, and this is the thing here for me. Like we're talking about the team trying to get tougher. We see the direction Drury's been going in for 4 years now with the toughness. And now we're gonna trade a young player that we've developed well for Jason Robertson. I don't see it. I don't.
There's no way Chris Drury is giving him up.
I don't. You know what? Maybe what they can do is trade Alexi Lafreniere in a different deal and then give the assets used from that to trade for Jason Robertson if they want to do that. I mean, Drury can get creative and make that happen. It's possible. But I just do not see them giving up Will Cooley in a deal for somebody like Jason Robertson. Jason Robertson's a good player. I don't think he's an elite player. I don't.
Yeah.
And yeah, you could talk about 100-point player. Yeah, sure. He had a 100-point season, but is that the outlier or is that the norm? It's certainly looking like an outlier like that right now. And maybe he proves me wrong, but it looks like
kicking the tires on Robertson.
A bunch of teams, and I'm cool not getting him. I'm cool not getting him. If they don't get him, fine by me. Fine by me. I honestly, this team, and I've said this before, I said this after last season, they need to find a way to start rebuilding. So if they don't go and trade Robertson and they use whatever space they get for going after a McDavid or an Eichel or something like that, then okay, I'm cool with that. But they need to start rebuilding and they need to start building up the cupboard.
I hate anytime people are talking about future free agents because again, that's what basically turned me off of basketball because it was always, LeBron's going to be the free agent the year after next, or then KD, then this guy. And the Knicks always failed. They always failed.
And I'm fine with not getting those guys. I don't expect them to get it. I don't expect them. You know what? They're probably, Jay's probably right about this. Eichel's probably the one where they're going to go like hard, balls to the wall for, because the whole Boston connection is going on there. But like, if they don't get these guys, okay, rebuild the right way.
The only thing what worries me about Eichel is that he's gonna be 29 this October. So after that next summer, July, when that whoever signs him in that next season, he's gonna be 30. So it's not exactly a spring chicken. So you're gonna spend at that point, with the cap keep going up, you're gonna spend what, $11 million on a guy that's 30 years old. I mean, I don't know. That's my feelings on Jack Eichel. I mean, if you were to X me who the guy is in that free agents class that I would do mostly anything for, and it's not McDavid, because I think McDavid getting to free agency, my personal feelings, I don't think it's going to happen. Kirill Kaprizov, though, that's the guy that I think is going to be a huge prize, and I think he is going to get there. I think that he had a lot of hesitation before he committed to Minnesota. Even the beginning of this year, I think it was Russo that was saying that he thinks Kaprizov is going to leave Minnesota. So Kaprizov is the guy that I would go after, and go after hard. I think he's an elite level talent.
Here's the issue, though. They want to stay away from players like that. He's another one where the game gets more tightly checked. I'm not going to say he disappears, because out of all the smaller Russian players that you could kind of stereotype into that one group where you think he plays like Panarin, he doesn't play like Panarin. He plays a lot tougher of a game than Panarin does. And I'm not saying he's a bruiser, but he'll fight through those checks, unlike Panarin, and he'll still try to find a way to get to those dirty areas. The problem is the talent around him is not great enough to beat the teams like Edmonton, like Vegas, like Dallas, like Colorado, because it's not there. So my
question on him also is his health.
Yeah, and his health is an issue too. Hi, Anthony. Welcome to the show. So Anthony's asking, who is more likely that Florida re-signs as a combo, Brad and Bennett or Bennett and Ekblad? I think Sam Bennett might be gone. I think Marchand, there's a lot of word going around that he might stay. And Aaron Ekblad, it depends on how much he wants from Florida, because he's had a lot of injuries. And
there has been some conversation about Ekblad just taking around the same money he's making right now.
If he does, then I think he stays. Yeah. I would be very wary about giving him a big contract, just because he's on the other side of 30 now. Or he's going to be, I think.
Who, Ekblad?
Yeah,
he's going to be.
He's Draisaitl's age in the same draft.
February 7th, Phil.
So he's already 30. Or no, he will be 30 in the middle of next season. Sorry. Yeah. It's tough. It's tough. PED discount. Yeah, I don't know. I think that his body is it's taken a lot of abuse over the years. And I mean, Florida can maybe get the whole state tax to work to their advantage, but I think his injury history and his age will really come into play there. And that's where teams might be hesitant to give him a bigger deal.
I agree there.
Yeah. And hey, Puck, yeah, Pete's here.
Ekblad was rumored to leave, and I didn't hear anything about that, but yeah.
I know they said Marchand would certainly consider Toronto in free agency. He'd be open to that. So I'm not convinced that, honestly, Marchand's going to stay in Florida. I think they're going to try to make Bennett priority. And how high?
I would if I were them, but I mean, I think that Marchand, there's a lot of word going around that Marchand may end up staying, and he loves it there. I don't think there's any restricted free agents that you guys are going to go after. I don't think there's going to be a lot of restricted free agency activity.
There aren't many that I can think of.
I don't think Matthew Nyes is going anywhere. I don't think Will Cooley is going anywhere. I think Keandre Miller will get dealt before he even gets to restricted free agency.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I could see Toronto throwing a bunch of money at him and Bennett, though, and I said that about Bennett. But I mean, there's still something left in the tank with Marchand. Do you give him $7 million? Do you give him $8 million? I mean, that seems kind of high for a 36-year-old forward. I think Bowen Byron gets dealt.
Yeah.
I don't know about Owen Power. I think that's you're going to see some moves in Buffalo, definitely.
Turka.
You're definitely going to see moves.
I think Paterka and Byram are both gone. I wonder about Alex Tuck. Owen Power, if I had to put a percentage on that one, I'm leaning like 65-35 that he stays.
Yeah, I wouldn't bet on Power leaving.
I wouldn't either. I wouldn't.
No.
Yeah, we talked about this. Yeah. I don't think that it's going to be tough to move him. Larry Brooks is saying that Zibanejad would probably be more amenable to waiving his no move now that Kreider's gone.
And you would get something back for Zibanejad. Keep in mind he's still under contract till 2030.
Yeah, and even his down year, I get it. He's this is kind of a buy low situation, but I still think, I mean, him being able to play center gets him a higher package. He's another one. It's time. It's time for a change here. Just wave and move on, man. Like they're clearly going in a different direction. Wave.
Yeah, he's 32. He's going to be 33 at the end of next year. And it's just, I mean,
I don't think anybody's going to say that it's overall a win, but to get rid of him would be good. They need to get rid of him. He's clearly not an NHL level defenseman. It was a bad trade, but get rid of him.
This would be a bad move.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of a 7x8 for Gavrikov, or even if it was LA, an 8x8 for Gavrikov.
Which would be a worse contract, this one or Wade Redden?
That you could see that his game was declining a bit, and that he wasn't the guy in Ottawa. It was Chara, and that those 2 years after Chara left, I know they went to the Stanley Cup Finals the first year without Chara, but that was more so because of that pizza line or whatever line that was, that Alfredson Heatley Spezza line, and some of their other depth guys that were doing well. But Redden should have, the Rangers should have never went out and given him that much money. That was just dumb. But Gavrikov, you're going to go and give him $8 million to be a strictly, you're not getting much offense out of this guy. You're getting 30, maybe 35 points if you're lucky.
Yeah.
And you're going to go and give him an $8 million AAV?
That'd be brutal.
I get that Orlov got like 7 and Slavin's AAV, but Gavrikov is not worth that, man.
Orlov is at least a much better skater and more offensive minded than Gavrikov.
Yeah, but Orlov was also not as good defensively.
No, he wasn't.
I mean, Joe's right here, though. Like, Redden was unplayable. He was flat out unplayable. Gavrikov is going to be a decent defensive defenseman. The problem is you're not going to get $8 million out of him, and I'm not convinced that he's like a true top pairing guy. I think if you're you're a cup threat, like you have legitimate Stanley Cup aspirations, like you're bringing him in to be on your second pairing.
Yeah,
you want a better guy on your top pairing. I get you're bringing him in to complement someone like Adam Fox. But again, are you winning with guys like that?
Nope.
I don't see it.
No. And by the way, just to answer Anthony right here, would it make sense for Florida to go get Mika Zibanejad? It could, but would he play a 200-foot game? You know what? After a trade and you go to the Stanley Cup champion, you might be more amenable to listen.
That's a brutal go from Bennett, who was a playoff warrior, to Zibanejad. That's great.
Oh my God!
Yeah, but you know what though?
That is going dead on seconds.
I'm gonna bring this up because I brought this up yesterday, and I brought it up because Frank Saravalli brought this up when they were asking about Bennett. Like Frank Saravalli brought up some great points, saying that Bennett might not work elsewhere because he works in Florida because it's the exact right situation that he needs to be in. Like he's playing behind one of the most complete player in the game right now in Barkov. He doesn't have to deal with the big time matchups because Barkov is somebody that you could throw out there to score and be your top checking guy. Johnny Lazarus. What's up, Johnny? Oh my God. I have a better chance.
Yeah, that's accurate.
Johnny, would that come from Frank or Frank? Because that's what I want to know. I honestly, that would be a better fit for Zibanejad than almost anything out there. But yeah, I don't see that happening either. I don't. I think that's a pipe dream. If Florida took him without any salary retention, I think the Rangers would ship him there in a heartbeat. I just Frank. Yeah, that was definitely Frank.
By the way, we were talking about Will Cooley, also known as Matthew Nyes Light.
Yeah, that's another great soundbite. Matthew Nyes Light. I like that one. Yeah. I mean, I get it. I see the similarities in the gameplay. But you know, Matthew Nyes is obviously playing in a higher role with better supporting talent around him. Well, not really supporting talent, but the real play drivers, I guess you could say. I don't know about that next year. I don't think Perreault starts the year. I think he starts in Hartford, unless he absolutely blows them away in camp, which could happen. But I wouldn't rush Perreault, and that's if he's here. If he's not dealt, so do we think a player like Anton Lundell might end up getting frustrated? No. I think if Bennett goes, there's your second line center, and that's why I don't think. That's another reason why I don't think Zibanejad is going.
Yeah, Lundell's going nowhere.
Yeah. Lundell's signed long term at a decent price, and I think there's some room for him to grow offensively.
By the way, just to answer Anthony's question right here, if Game 4 plays out the same way as Game 3 did, is the series over for Edmonton? You do not count this series over until the final buzzer.
Yeah,
Connor McDavid proved it last year.
Yeah, I wouldn't count Edmonton out. There's like they could just say Connor, go out there and score again, and he could power them back. He could. He proved that he did. He proved that he could last year.
Yeah.
And I think both of these teams are a little better than they were last year. That's the crazy part.
I don't know if Perreault showed nothing. I didn't think he showed much. I don't know if it was nothing. And on that team last year, who was showing anything?
I wouldn't say nothing either. I think if the vibes were better in that locker room, I think you're looking at a team that that could have done a little more. And Gabe played somewhat well. I wouldn't say he was a world beater or did anything mind blowing, but yeah, I don't know about Skinner. This is a series where Skinner, I just think and this is Hyman's loss is a bigger loss than what some of us have let it on to be.
Yeah, Hyman is a big loss.
Well, Well, Hyman's out for the rest of the playoffs. He's not coming back until next season.
Hold on, and Jeff McNeil just went yard.
All right.
Well, I'm gonna give Anthony a pat on the back right now. But Anthony's question right here: do you guys agree with the comparisons that Floor has been getting in the terms of people saying there's a reminder of the early 2000s or the 1980 New York Islanders? The 2000 Devils were the most structured defensive team ever, even late 90s into the 2000s. Nobody was more structured defensively than them. They never veered away from it. That's what was so good. The New York Islanders, the 80s, could beat you in any way. You want to play defense? Then they could do that. You want to run and gun? They could do that too. And they were tough as nails. Like his history is saying it. They won 19 consecutive series for a reason. So, and if you want to wax philosophical on them for a second.
No, I mean those are pretty high comparisons that we compared with either of those teams, but different time though too. I mean, both those eras are completely different than what it is now.
Could you at least compare this Panthers team and maybe Tampa? I think Tampa Bay is a little bit more talented than what I'm letting on. But maybe you can compare them to the 90s Red Wings, late 90s Red Wings.
Those are some really good teams.
No, I don't think they play anything like the Red Wings.
Trying to find a comparison off the top of my head.
They weren't. All right, so Scotty Bowman employed left wing lock, which was where the neutral zone trap comes from. Jacques Lemaire played under Bowman, and Bowman used the left wing lock in the 70s, and that's where Lemaire got the neutral zone trap idea from. He basically derived it from that schematic. But I think this Florida team maybe plays a little more like the 2000s Devils. But the 2000s Devils, they weren't an aggressive forechecking team. They played a 1-2-2, and they sat back. And this is the other thing. It's hard because the two-line pass rule was in effect back then. So you could just sit back, clog up the neutral zone, and the Devils were the team that got away the most with the clutching, the holding, and the water skiing and all the different stuff that you could do in the 90s. Detroit didn't play like that. Detroit played an up-tempo, high pressure, forechecking game. They had different lines that could do different things. They could put the Russian five together, and they could possess the puck. You had Yzerman playing with either the Primo and Cicerelli, and then Shanahan when he came along, and Lapointe. And they were completely different teams. So no, I don't think it's like that.
All right, yeah. So I mean, it's hard to find the comparison for them. It's just it's just where you look at it. You like
Florida plays a very, very high pressure forecheck game. They just go at you in waves. You try to use the boards, they clog up the boards. They basically dare you to go to the middle of the ice.
Mm-hmm.
And their puck support. The thing for me with Florida is their puck support is better than like any team that's out there right now. They understand how to support the puck both offensively and defensively. So they go and there's a chance in the offensive zone. They have a guy in the exact right position just about every time. And then defensively, when they get into that forechecking posture, they send the guy in, and then they have the two other forecheckers covering the boards. F1 will go in, and then F2 and F3 will cover the boards, and they'll force the play to the middle. So really the play that you have to do to beat them is you have to come off the boards, and you have to have a touch pass that goes to a middle and catches a forward with speed, breaking out of the defensive zone. And it has to be precise. Like, you literally have to have a touch pass coming off the boards, and you have to have a player skating to the middle. Otherwise, if you don't, that's going to result in a turnover, and that's where Florida starts to play their cycle game, and that's where they grind you down. That's why there's a clip of Maurice literally saying, wear down their defense for the next game. So.
I don't think. Now, by the way, I don't think we need to worry about Connor McDavid anyway. I don't think he's going anywhere.
I don't know, man.
But
I would love it, but I don't
the
know.
second part of the question is, will he be the GM next off season? Yeah. Do you know how many times the Rangers have changed their GMs over the since 1989? Neil Smith took over in 1989. They got Glenn Sather, they got Jeff Gorton, they got Chris Drury. There have been more popes. So trust me, it's Chris Drury's here next year. Every fan that wants to see him gone, it ain't gonna happen. Yeah, well, we can talk about the Devil's Trap, but the Devil's Trap was, it was exciting for Devils fans, tell you that. By the way, just highlighting these again, guys. Thank you very much, Johnny Red and John D. Lee. We try our best on these. Chris T asked earlier, do you guys think a player who wasn't really rumored to be moved like Sergachev was could possibly go to the Rangers? Not Sergachev himself, but a guy not in the rumor mill. I don't know. Oh, I think we're doing a who says no.
Yeah, Anthony's doing a who says no here.
I can answer that right away.
I think Buffalo might say no to that.
I think Buffalo says hell no. Tage Thompson is too big.
Yeah, I think they're going to want more back if they're dealing Tage Thompson.
Yeah, like Tage Thompson's the number one center in the league.
Yeah, he's I would say he's one of the top 10 centers in the league.
Chris T was kind of saying earlier, Phil, about and what RL3 is saying right here. To be honest, I want to see how the D plays with proper D zone. But I mean, it's that it. What does it say about the Rangers and their system when their D zone or their defenseman quit? That entire team quit. It wasn't a matter of the system that made them quit. They quit. Because if you want to go with a team that could have quit, you could have gone to the 2014, the 2013, 2014 Rangers that were abysmal in the first 5 weeks of the season. They were awful. And then, oh, wait, this is the way we play it? Stanley Cup Finals. Yeah, Thompson.
Yeah, but I think that had more to do with Marty St. Louis coming in. And, obviously the loss of his mother. I think there's more to do with it than that. But it's the entire team giving up.
I agree also, but on the other hand, I'm going to add two more things. Chris Kreider's return, as we talked about yesterday.
Yeah, that helped too.
The other thing is Henrik Lundqvist just did an impression of a wall. I mean, they don't win Game 7 without Henrik Lundqvist, and they played a great Game 7. And Lundqvist was just the man, and that armpit save. Somebody said, I think it was on Twitter, that we got a good one coming up over here.
I think this is a little closer, but I think Ottawa still says no.
I think Ottawa still says no. I think, keep in mind, Lafreniere being locked up for 7 years. You got a guy who is a number one draft pick pedigree, that there's obviously issues here. And the Rangers, I have to look at what Batherson's contract is.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. Oh, what?
Batherson's 27. I can't believe he's 27. But Batherson's only signed for 2 more years at $4,975, which is a real good price for what he is, considering that he's had 60 points the last 3 seasons.
See, these are some of the trades I need Anthony we need to do a who says no possibly next week.
Yeah, Nyquist does a deal or no deal. I mean, we could do something like that.
We just haven't done a who says no in a while.
Yeah.
Even for free agencies and stuff like that. We got a lot of that stuff going on soon. You know what? We're going to go about another 10 more minutes, guys, and then that's it. Phil, we got to talk about this. Pete DeBoer got fired from the Dallas Stars. Who do they bring in to replace him?
I don't know. That's a good question.
And I'm not arguing about the firing.
I mean, honestly, I don't know who would be. I mean, I feel like Laviolette would be a good fit there. That's just me. I know a lot of people are going to say, "Oh, how can you bring in Laviolette when a team quit on him?" You know, I don't think the team was quitting on him. I just think it was Drury they were quitting on.
Yeah, no, they quit on Drury, and then Laviolette ended up quitting when they realized that they're not coming back. Like there were some bad efforts.
I would do that. I wonder if LA would. You know what? That's actually a good idea on paper, just because he's young, and I mean he's not too much younger than Keandre Miller. Like he really isn't. I mean he's got 1 year left at 1713. I mean he put up 33 points this year in what was really his like. I still think he had rookie candidacy this year. So he played 9 games in 23 and then played only 16 in 23, 24. So I think he was still considered a rookie this year. But I mean, the only thing that sucks about him is that he's another right shot defenseman.
Yeah, if they're stockpiling them up for a while with the Rangers, they don't need any more right shot defensemen.
No.
I got Mikey Red. I don't think Knobloch gets fired no matter what. I think first his connection to McDavid, you might as well just keep him there for a while. And you can't argue with a coach that brought you to back-to-back Stanley Cup finals.
You know, I keep seeing, again, Rasmus Anderson, also a right shot defenseman. Now, you could play him as a number 2 behind Adam Fox. That's the thing, is that would be a legitimate top 4 that you could put on a second pairing, and he could eat 21, 22 minutes a game.
Let's answer this one. Which team do you think faces the most pressure to win Game 4, the Oilers or the OKC Thunder? I'm going to go with the Thunder because, again, I'm going to repeat this. I've been saying this all along. It's that the Oilers know they can go all the way down to 0-3 and come back and force Game 7. And once you know that, I mean, hell, the Oilers lose tonight, this series is going back to Florida no matter what. And then it's up to Florida to try to close it out. There's more pressure on Florida to win, I'll say tonight, more than Game 5. But the Oilers know what they got. OKC, the way that the Pacers shoot, they better get one now. Because look what happened with the Knicks.
I feel like this is a wash, but that's just me.
Yeah, but I just, again, Phil, Oilers know they can come back.
I mean, I don't know. It's rough because that I mean, I get it. They were down 3-0 last year, but I mean, both of these teams are better than they were last year. So,
all right. Is there a problem with my audio right now?
No.
All right. Okay. No, I'm getting a text that there's something wrong with the audio. We're gonna break this up now anyway, Phil, because
yeah, I know you wanted to keep this one shorter today.
Yeah, we have a full show that we do every single week. Might have to do this one on Tuesday. And the Keandre Miller situation, I don't think it's gonna matter. I don't think it's going to matter. I think the Rangers are going to move on from him. There's too many excuses on Keandre Miller. He's going to be on his 4th coach. Have we really seen progression from his first full year? I don't think so. I think you got to.
I just think that it's everything with Miller is all up here, and I don't think he can figure it out here. I don't. I think that he's one of those guys where I think if he does figure it out, which I don't have 100% faith that he will. I think that he needs to be in an area where there's less spotlight on him, where there's less pressure, where he can just go out there and do his thing and not worry about outside distractions, the media, everything, because it's tougher in New York. Like if he went somewhere like, I don't know, Seattle, for example, I think he could develop more there, and there would be more of a emphasis on just letting him go out and do his thing. But I don't like what's up here. There's tools, but I don't think there's a toolbox.
Yeah. And again, that's something that Keandre never. I think this is where the Rangers kind of babied him too much. Or maybe he didn't get that growth, but he crumbles under pressure. So, just what I'm seeing about that. Oh, hey Devils.
I don't understand. Yeah, I don't like the idea of David Quinn coming back. I heard Sacco might be running it. If it's David Quinn running it, yikes, because his defensive schematic in New York was horrible.
I heard about Quinn running the power play.
Maybe. I mean, the power play was good. I mean, but then again, that's when you had Tony DeAngelo scoring, 50-something points in 60-something games. That was Zibanejad's big, goals per NHL leading goals per game year in 2020. Artemi Panarin had that, Hart Trophy, finalist season. So I don't know if it's necessarily a byproduct of Quinn or if it's just. I'll answer this question. You've been watching long enough to know my stance on that Igor deal. They should have never signed him to it.
Yeah.
And I don't feel bad for Igor because he had to have known what he was going to get himself into.
Yeah, no, you take the money and you're going to get all the pressure that comes with that. And by the way, he wanted to blow the doors off of the contract negotiations. Good. Well, you know what? That's what you got to deal with. At least we know Igor's mentally tough enough to handle that.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. I mean, he's needed a mental reset in the last 3 seasons now, where he just, you could tell that he just wasn't all there mentally. So,
yeah.
I mean,
like Igor isn't Henrik Lundqvist, guys, as far as that goes. And as a matter of fact, he's still not Henrik Lundqvist in any way. I'm sorry to break that news to people. But
Lundqvist was the epitome of Lundqvist was probably the epitome of goalie consistency all time. Like you want to. I mean, I get Hasek had the 6 Vezinas in 8 years, but the 2 years that he didn't, he had a bad year in '96, which Lundqvist didn't have until he was into his mid-30s, and also the other thing was that Hasek was injured in the other year, and then kind of after that 2002 season, that first retirement, he was good, but he was never the same goaltender. Lundqvist, for 11, 12 years straight, was the epitome of goalie consistency.
Yeah.
Hey, Jay.
And then in 2012, he unlocked Super Lundqvist, which was ridiculous. And it's funny, Phil, because nobody ever brings this up, and I still think it's one of the most amazing things I've ever seen somebody do. But Henrik Lundqvist, and by the way, you don't, Lonnie. You're right about that. You don't build out from the.
I've been saying this for 2 years now, and I've been getting so much shit for it, and nobody listens. Nobody listens to me.
Build just like baseball, up the middle. You build up the middle, everything will fall into place.
You address center, and you address defense, and then you build around, and then you can go get them.
But
Devils Joint, see me on Twitter. I know you see me on Twitter. Check some of those threads. You'll see what I'm talking about.
Yes. But now I gotta remember what we were just talking about.
The building, the way you build a team, the way you build a team. Penguins, Kings, Hawks. Look at them. They all built up the middle, built up their defense, and their goaltending wasn't their best player. Their goalie was not their best. You don't even talk about Quick. Okay, Quick was elite. But is Quick elite without Doughty chewing up 30-plus minutes a game? I don't think
Also,
so.
Sean said this one. Drury has now traded Kakko, Lindgren, Trouba, Kreider, Hedel. Dude is on a mission to reshape this team. If this is what Chris Drury needs to do, by all means, do it. Do not look back.
Vegas is another one. They went out and they got Jack Eichel because they had Jack Eichel.
And they won a Stanley Cup with the fourth possible goaltender they could have used.
Yeah. Matt Murray won 2 Stanley Cups. Marc-Andre Fleury was a backup for both of those.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't know. You're right, because we invested money and the goaltender before that.
Which is just, it's dumb. It's dumb. Because think about it. Do you realize how much more successful the late 2000s Rangers would have been if they won the Crosby draft lottery and it was Crosby and Yager and Henrik Lundqvist on an entry-level contract? Like, that's the way to kind of look at that. You can find the goaltender. It's the goaltenders out there. Subpar goaltenders have won. And yeah.
So, thank you, Fried Pucks. Appreciate it.
Thank you. And
yeah, I am definitely not Mickey. Nice try, J.E. Nice try.
All right, guys. So that's going to wrap us up for today. If more news comes along, we will be on to break it. And this is, 2 days in a row. I got a bunch of shorts that I have to edit and get clips on. But Chris Kreider, no more. By the way, somebody mentioned Hellebuck. Should we mention the leaked photo?
What? Oh, which one?
Of Connor Hellebuck kneeling with the Vezina and the Hart.
Oh, whoa! So there's a leak that Connor Hellebuck won the Hart Trophy.
Yeah. Oh, I thought you knew about this.
Yeah. Let's talk about how bad Connor Hellebuck is in the playoffs. But the guy became the third goalie in the modern era to win the Vezina and the Hart in the same year. Oof. Yeah, that'll look real good for the Hey Igor crowd's argument right there.
Yeah.
Talk to me when Igor wins an MVP, bud. He ain't winning anytime soon.
Which, by the way, Phil, one thing is I can't stand the people that say, "Oh, the Hart Trophy, goalies have their own award." Yeah, they got their own award. So do defensemen. So does
that
basically
makes it that much more of an accomplishment when they win the Hart Trophy, because that means they were playing at a level that you don't really see often.
Yeah. Like, one of the things we're going to talk about is Hart Trophy runner-ups eventually during the summer. We're going to make up a list of that.
So if we're going to argue that Igor is paid for the playoffs, then we're certainly cool with paying Sam Bennett $9 million a year because of playoffs.
$9 million. Phil, $9 million? Sam Bennett should get 15. Why is there even a conversation?
$12 million because he's so great in the playoffs.
Yeah. And then, so then in that case, Panarin needs to get nothing.
Thank you, Joe. This is what I've been trying to say. You don't build around a goalie.
Yes. Also, by the way, Phil, I guess one more before we sign off. A quick question. Somebody asked, Chris Kreider is a top blank Ranger of all time.
Sean goes top 30.
Actually, I went generous with 20.
All right. So I have to think of the guys that I would put before him. So I'm going
Lone Ranger. Good one, Todd.
Lone Ranger, yeah.
There's 3 of you. You're not exactly lone.
So you're gonna go Leach, you're gonna go Park, you're gonna go Mess, you're gonna go Hank, You're going to go Rattel, Gilbert, Bathgate,
Howell.
Graves, Howell.
I'm gonna omit the guys like Bill Cook, Frank Boucher.
It's hard to judge those guys because there's
Yeah.
not a lot of footage of that, and the game is completely different.
Hell, you couldn't pass it forward in those days.
Yeah, I said Park already.
Did you say Graves? Yager?
Yeah, I said Graves. Yager would definitely be.
Did you say Mess?
I said Messier, yeah.
Okay.
I'm over 10 already.
Okay. Then we still, well, I'll have to come up with the list, but then we have to put up Richter, Lundqvist, Jockerman.
He's got to be a top 7, Johnny? No.
Oh, sorry, Johnny. Kreider? No.
No, I put Richter over him too. Richter was
Lundqvist, Richter, Jockerman, all better.
Jockerman, yeah. Like you're talking about guys that had their numbers retired. Yeah, okay. So Chris Kreider was not what Adam Graves was for this organization. And I don't think you can argue that in any such sort of way possible. I don't. I really don't.
If we talk about guys and their performances, Yager was incredible in the time that he was with the New York Rangers, and a year of his
got a good point here. What they did for the organization, Yager helped bring them back to respectability when they were a joke.
Yeah, they were predicted to be. See, by the way, this is where Johnny's got the good case. Now, conference finals, cup final, that's all team stuff. Because by the way, we already beat without Henrik Lundqvist. Nowhere. However, see, this would be great if we had, like I said, if we had Johnny on for this.
That he does without Lundqvist, though. I don't think so. And Lundqvist was doing things like that before Kreider even came along. Yeah, but does Kreider get past the second round without Lundqvist? I don't think he does.
Well, Yager also didn't get past the second round because the Rangers had to go through Pittsburgh, and that
the Rangers also had a terrible team around Yager.
Yeah.
The only reason they made the playoffs was because of Yager and Lundqvist.
But no.
Okay, what about in the Stanley Cup Finals, though? Did he win anything?
Yeah, but as far as the Ranger goes, I mean, you also got to look at the regular season numbers that are in there.
This is.
I'm sorry, I'm not putting him ahead of Mike Richter.
No, I'm not. I'm not putting him ahead of Gilbert.
And by the way, right now, Johnny, we're just spitballing. We're not saying where he is. Again, we'd love to work with you on this and see if we could come up with a consensus list. But I can't put him ahead of Mike Richter, who won 300 games when that was still something. I can make an almost a solid argument of John Van Beesbroek being over Chris Kreider. John Van Beesbroek won a Vesta trophy.
No, I do, but I don't agree with you. I don't agree at all. I don't think on or off ice impact. I don't think he's a top 7. I have to go Leach. I have to go Gilbert. I have to go Park. I have to go Messier. I have to go Lundqvist. I have to go Richter. I would argue Howell over him.
Oh no, there's no need to argue. Harry Howell. Definitely.
Harry Howell was like the face of the Rangers, their captain, a Norris winner there. I mean, I would argue Graves over Kreider. If you want to talk about the numbers being the same, if you looked at the numbers, Chris Kreider and Adam Graves averaged the same 82-game numbers.
Espo was kind of past his prime by the time he got to the Rangers.
Yeah, I wouldn't argue Espo or Maloney or taking it over Kreider.
I wouldn't argue any of them.
I wouldn't argue any of those. I would say Kreider somewhere in the 10 to 15 range, maybe.
Can you argue Mike Gartner over Chris Kreider?
He was there for a short time, and he didn't win in the playoffs.
Again, Zubov and Gardner, I think the longevity doesn't help.
Yeah, the longevity doesn't help for those guys. That's
okay. But this one, Ron Greshner.
Gresh is an interesting case.
Okay, so
then we're gonna weigh a shorter sample size over, and this is the thing. So are you people telling me
that Sam Bennett is a good idea to sign and give a massive contract to because he's a playoff performer? That's what I want to know right now.
By the way, Joe's on this one too.
If this is true, then that's a problem.
But again, you still got
the regular season.
Here's a question for you: Chris Kreider versus Ryan Callahan. Who was the better player?
That's close, though. The regular season numbers, they favor Kreider. The playoff numbers favor Kreider. But on a night-to-night basis, if you ask me who I want for one game to win the final, like if I'm talking about Stanley Cup Game 7, I know that Ryan Callahan, hell or high water, is going to give me 200%. I don't know if I could trust Kreider to show up in a game like that.
Yeah, John Weber's got a good point with this one. And I don't mean to say this in any way to slam Vic Hatfield, who was amazing, but Adam Gray is literally would donate his entire body to just get the Rangers a goal. He had a puck go off his face and into the net in Game 1 of the Stanley Cup playoffs in 1994.
Yeah,
no, I'm just saying,
great because he didn't score 30 goals until age 31. And had a 50-goal season just like Chris Kreider did.
Johnny, I'm not saying Callahan's better. I'm just spitballing and throwing it out there. However, I'm
putting Kreider ahead of Callahan. I
probably would eventually. You're talking about 48 playoff goals.
But I'm saying that if there's a Game 7, I want Callahan over Kreider. Because Chris Kreider has a habit of not showing up in big games at times.
He's also, but Phil, the microcosm of Chris Kreider is literally the last game of the Carolina series.
It
was a no-show for 45 minutes. Everybody was frustrated. Where the hell is this guy? Pokes one in the net, tips one home, scores the series winner. Good night.
Yeah, and then what does he do in the Florida series?
He got the last goal at MSG.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the problem. That's why I'm taking Callahan over him in a Game 7. In one Game 7. That's it. One Game 7. I know Ryan Callahan may not score. Chris Kreider may score. Ryan Callahan may not. But Ryan Callahan is going to give you 200% on all 200 feet of that ice surface.
By the way, let me also just say this.
If you tell me otherwise, you're a liar.
By the way, Phil, while we're at it, I'll throw this one out there. And we're all focused on Craig Banajad, this coupling of them together. Which Chris Kreider was the better one in the end? Yeah, the numbers were better, and he was a superstar. In the
Pierre LaRouche is not ahead of Kreider. Stop.
But no, not Pierre LaRouche. Definitely not. But anyway, Kreider and Zibanejad, yeah, their numbers were great. But Kreider was a better player with Derek Stepan.
I don't know about that. I think Kreider was better. I mean, you could think that if you'd like, but it's absolutely true. You know that Chris Kreider shows up for games on end and then disappears for games on end. He disappeared in the Florida series. He disappeared in the Tampa series in 2022. I'm sorry, but
and that was after he scored I want to say the second goal he scored in Game 3.
The last two games of that series in 2022 against Tampa, Kreider and Zibanejad were non-existent. They were non-existent. The problem is that Kreider, if he's not scoring goals, is not affecting the game otherwise. Callahan will give you 200% on all 200 feet of that ice surface. He will.
Kreider is a little bit unfairly judged defensively because of how he started his career. He was a better defensive player than what people
overrated defensively. Defensively. The same people that overrate him defensively are the same people that say Rick Nash was not good defensively, which was bullshit because Mike Babcock brought him on in 2014 because of his defensive play. and because of the job he did on Ilya Kovalchuk in 2010.
All right. Well, again, we're going to wrap this one up. This was a good conversation, Johnny, and we love to have you on again.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
yeah.
So Mark wanted to end this probably about like 15 minutes ago, and you probably just gave everybody that 15-minute extension that they were all looking for. So thank Johnny Lazarus for that.
Well, because again, when you get the great Johnny Lazarus to come on to throw out a great question like that and a great comment, because look, I'm one of the bigger Chris Kreider guys you could find. I can't put him top 10.
I can't either. I can't.
Especially when you have 3 goalies that you have to put in the top 10.
So hold on. So does Marty Brodeur being the statistical leader in everything make him better than Dominik Hasek?
Or Patrick Waugh?
Or Patrick Waugh?
Or Ken Dryden?
No, I'm putting Brodeur ahead of Dryden.
I would actually consider Dryden. I'm going to say, just putting it out there. Jacques Plante, there's another one.
Yeah, but he didn't win a Vezina in the voting era. Neither did Dryden.
Yeah.
I mean, and again, it's different back then. Dryden also played behind no less than 8 Hall of Famers every season in his career.
By the way, Phil, I mean, the voting era is flawless. After all, you could have a defenseman who plays outstanding come up.
Yeah, I get it. Yes, the voters are flawed. Yes, but
yeah,
you do know that the Vezina up until 82-83 was just given to the goaltender with the lowest GAA, right?
It was the William Jennings trophy.
It was basically the Jennings trophy. Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's different. I think Billy Smith was the last one, or Billy Smith might have been the first one to win it in the voting.
Well, he would also probably be the last one to win it then. I'd have to double check that. All right.
No.
By the way, just for the record, something else everybody forgets. Did you know ground rule doubles in 1927 were considered home runs? 2 years later, Babe Ruth hit like 54 anyway, so 58. So it doesn't matter. So don't think we're taking anything away from him.
No, it's just...
All right, guys.
I think there's a difference between a compiler and someone who is actually a great player.
Yeah,
Chris
but if you
Kreider
look
was
at
a very
Kreider,
good Ranger, but I don't think he was a great Ranger.
If you look at Chris Kreider, Phil, I think he blossomed late, and he became what Ranger fans wanted him to be late. And I think he was a better player in his early phase. You waited for that 30-goal season. You waited for that huge 50-goal season.
He should have had it in 2019. How you start 20 goals in 38 games and you finish the rest of the season with 8 goals is basically what Chris Kreider's career is for me. What could have been. And he could have been that second coming of Kevin Stevens.
Yeah, but they also admitted to tinkering with the lineups to see what they had at the end of that. So it's also, he never really had a premier setup man until Mika. And
there's a lot of things we're going to say. He's a great setup man, though.
Yeah, but we're gonna, and I wouldn't even say he's a premier setup man anyway. But now it's time to turn the page, and that's what we're gonna do, everybody. We're gonna sign off right here, and everyone take it easy. And we'll come up with our list of the greatest New York Rangers of all time and see where Chris Kreider falls in. We'll talk to you soon. And yeah, I disagree with that. I think that's not a bad take, Phil.
He wants to say that. That's fine, but I just think that it's one of the worst takes ever to say that he's a top. Like, you have him ahead of Mike Richter. You have him. Who do you like? You cannot have him ahead of Brian Leach. You cannot have him ahead of
Leach, Park, Rattel.
Rattel, Gilbert. Richter, Lundqvist,
Bathgate.
Bathgate. Guy won an MVP.
Yeah. I mean, Kreider never won a major award. He had a 50-goal season.
We were still live somehow. I just got a text from Dave.
I know.
That was weird. So when you edit the video, you got to make sure you cut that out.
Yeah, I'm getting on that right now. Because in all honesty, Phil, I didn't think
Even this post from Ryan Mead. Kreider gave it all for this team, was as clutch as they come in the playoffs. Like, are we really that desensitized to think that Chris Kreider was the most clutch player you've ever seen in the playoffs?
You got to be kidding me.
Are you not watching Connor McDavid? Are you not watching Nathan McKinnon?
First off,
did you not watch Mark Messier or Wayne Gretzky in the playoffs?
If you want to talk about a guy that's clutch in the playoffs, look at number 2.
Brian Leach. Fuck. Guy won a Conn Smythe and the last 30-point defenseman in the playoffs.
The last defenseman, it's elite. We're live again?